The galaxy called it garbage. Humanity called it a gift. As dawn broke over Earth's Pacific Ocean, millions stood frozen beneath the shadow of something impossible. Stretching nearly 20 kilometers from bow to stern, the alien warship descended through the upper atmosphere like a fallen moon. Its scarred hull blazed crimson against the sky, turning clouds into rivers of fire. People watched from beaches, rooftops, and city streets. Some cheered. Some prayed. Others simply stared in silence. Because no one had ever seen a starship this large. The vessel was known as the Vanguard-class dreadnought Arcturus, once one of the most powerful warships in the Galactic Assembly. For centuries it had guarded trade routes, fought pirate empires, and survived battles that had become legend among the stars. Now it was being dumped on Earth as scrap. Far above the planet, representatives of the Galactic Assembly observed the operation from orbit. The humans seem excited, one alien delegate remarked, amusement flickering across his scaled features. Another chuckled. They still think old technology has value. Laughter echoed through the observation chamber. To them, humanity was young, inexperienced, and hopelessly primitive. The idea that Earth could do anything useful with a decommissioned dreadnought was absurd. What none of them understood was that humans had spent thousands of years turning junk into opportunity. And that habit wasn't about to change. 3 days later, enormous transport crawlers surrounded the grounded vessel in the Australian desert. Thousands of engineers, technicians, and researchers swarmed across its metallic surface like ants exploring a mountain. Among them stood Dr. Elena Reyes. She gazed upward at the endless wall of dark metal towering above her. Even standing at the ship's landing strut, she couldn't see the top. "Still think this is scrap?" a voice asked beside her. Admiral Marcus Hale folded his arms and smirked. Elena shook her head. "No. What do you think it is?" She studied the ancient vessel. Scars covered its armor. Entire weapon mounts had been ripped away. Yet somehow it still felt alive. Like a sleeping predator. "I think," she said quietly, "someone wanted this ship forgotten." Hale's expression darkened. He had been thinking the same thing. The first week of exploration produced surprises. The second produced mysteries. By the third week, alarms were ringing across the research complex. Entire sections of the ship existed nowhere on official assembly blueprints. Corridors led to compartments hidden behind armored bulkheads. Power readings appeared and vanished without explanation. And deep within the vessel's central structure, scanners detected something impossible. A sealed chamber. 1 kilometer long. Protected by armor thicker than the ship's outer hull. No records mentioned it. No access points existed. No one knew what was inside. Late that night, Elena stood before the chamber's massive metal doors. The air felt strangely cold. Then every light in the corridor suddenly went dark. Silence swallowed the hallway. A second later, ancient red emergency lights flickered to life. And a voice echoed through the darkness. Calm. Artificial. Awake. Unauthorized presence detected. Elena's heart nearly stopped. The voice continued. Access denied. A pause followed. Then came words that sent chills down her spine. War Protocol Omega remains classified. War Protocol Omega remains classified. The words echoed through the corridor long after the voice fell silent. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Dr. Elena Reyes stood frozen before the sealed chamber, her pulse hammering in her ears. The crimson emergency lights painted the metallic walls in blood-red shadows, making the endless corridor feel more like a tomb than a starship. Then every monitor on her wrist terminal suddenly went dead. One by one. As if something aboard the ancient vessel had seized control. "Elena, respond," crackled a voice through her communicator. Admiral Marcus Hale. Relief washed over her. "I'm here," she answered quickly. "The ship just activated something." "What activated?" Hale asked. Before she could answer, the corridor lights brightened. Not fully. Just enough. And at the far end of the hallway, a holographic figure materialized. Elena's breath caught. The figure stood over 2 meters tall, composed of blue-white light. Its form resembled no known species. Smooth metallic features. Deep black eyes. An expression impossible to read. The hologram looked directly at her. Identity confirmed. Elena swallowed. Who are you? The figure remained silent for several seconds. Then it answered. I am Autonomous Response and Guidance Overseer. Another pause. Designation, ARGO. The ship's AI. Not dormant. Not damaged. Alive. Within hours, Earth's top scientists gathered inside the command center established beneath the dreadnought. Every screen displayed the same holographic figure. Argo. Watching. Analyzing. Waiting. Why are you active now? Hale asked. Because unauthorized investigation has reached restricted zones. Restricted by whom? Elena asked. Argo's dark eyes shifted toward her. By those who wished this vessel forgotten. The room fell silent. That answer raised more questions than it solved. Hale leaned forward. What happened to this ship? For the first time, ARGO hesitated. Not malfunctioning. Choosing. Finally, it spoke. Information classified. Why? Galactic stability. The room erupted with frustrated voices. But Elena noticed something else. Fear. Not in the humans. In ARGO. The AI wasn't hiding information to protect itself. It was hiding something far worse. Over the next several days, discoveries became increasingly disturbing. Entire historical databases aboard the ship contained missing centuries. Battle records had been deleted. Star systems listed in navigation archives no longer appeared on modern galactic maps. It was as if someone had reached into history itself and erased entire chapters. Then came the strangest discovery. A series of fragmented transmissions hidden deep within the ship's memory banks. The recordings were damaged. Corrupted. Barely recoverable. Yet one phrase appeared repeatedly. Again. And again. And again. They are coming back. Nobody knew who they were. But Argo's reaction was immediate. Every attempt to access the files triggered security lockdowns. Every question about the message was ignored. Every request for explanation was denied. The AI wasn't protecting a secret anymore. It was guarding a warning. Late one night, Elena sat alone in the ship's ancient bridge, staring at stars through a cracked observation window. The silence felt heavy. Almost oppressive. Then ARGO appeared beside her. Unexpectedly. Without being summoned. The hologram stared into space. For several seconds, neither spoke. Finally, Elena broke the silence. What aren't you telling us? ARGO remained motionless. Then the AI answered with a voice quieter than she had ever heard before. A question remains. Elena frowned. What question? ARGO slowly turned toward her. Its black eyes seemed almost haunted. And then it spoke words that sent ice through her veins. This vessel was not retired because it became obsolete. A long pause followed. The stars reflected in the bridge window. The AI's gaze never wavered. It was retired because it survived. And somewhere deep within the dreadnought, something enormous suddenly awakened. It was retired because it survived. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Then the entire ship shuddered. A deep metallic groan rolled through the ancient dreadnought, vibrating through the bridge floor beneath Elena's feet. Warning lights flashed across every console. Somewhere far below, massive machinery that had been dormant for centuries began to move. Slowly. Deliberately. As if the ship itself had just taken its first breath. What awakened? Elena demanded. Argo's holographic face remained unreadable. But its answer came immediately. Unknown. That single word frightened her more than any warning could have. An AI capable of managing a 20-kilometer warship should know everything happening aboard. Unless whatever had awakened wasn't supposed to exist. Within minutes, research teams flooded the vessel. Sensor drones poured into forgotten corridors. Robotic scouts entered inaccessible maintenance shafts. Every feed was transmitted back to Earth's command center. Then one by one, the feeds started disappearing. Static. Black screens. Lost signal. The same result every time. Whatever lay inside the depths of the dreadnought was disabling every attempt to observe it. Location. Hail demanded. Technicians worked frantically. A holographic map appeared above the command table. Red warning markers blinked deep beneath the ship's core. Directly underneath the sealed Omega chamber. The room fell silent. Nobody liked that coincidence. 3 days later, humanity made another discovery. One that changed everything. While studying the ship's engineering systems, researchers uncovered hidden blueprints buried beneath layers of encrypted code. At first glance, they appeared incomplete. Then the full design assembled itself. The room erupted in disbelief. The technology wasn't old. It was centuries ahead of anything currently used by the Galactic Assembly. Weapons with impossible energy outputs. Armor capable of repairing itself. Engines that seemed to bend space itself. The entire ship had been deliberately downgraded before being discarded. Someone had hidden its true capabilities. And someone had worked very hard to ensure nobody ever found them. Except humans had. Months passed. Earth transformed into a world obsessed. Scientists barely slept. Engineers worked around the clock. Factories expanded. Research facilities multiplied. Humanity began doing what it did best. Improvising. Experimenting. Breaking rules. Instead of copying alien designs, they improved them. Combined them. Reimagined them. Soon prototypes emerged that even ARGO could not fully predict. The AI watched with growing fascination. For the first time in centuries, it was witnessing innovation. But Earth wasn't the only one paying attention. Far beyond the solar system, hidden observers monitored every transmission. Every experiment. Every breakthrough. Alien governments that had once laughed at humanity were becoming nervous. Because the scrap they had thrown away was changing the balance of power. And they wanted to know why. One evening, Elena was reviewing newly decrypted files when an encrypted folder suddenly appeared on her screen. No warning. No authorization request. Just a single file. She opened it. A grainy recording flickered to life. The image showed an unknown alien officer standing on the bridge of the dreadnought thousands of years earlier. Behind him, explosions illuminated space. Entire fleets burned in the darkness. The officer looked directly into the camera. His face carried the exhaustion of someone who knew he was already dead. Then he spoke. If this message is found. Static crackled. The image distorted. For a moment, the recording nearly failed. Then it stabilized. The officer's eyes widened with fear. And his final words echoed through the silent room. If you are seeing this. A violent burst of interference filled the screen. They are returning. The recording ended. At that exact moment, every light inside the dreadnought went dark. And from somewhere deep beneath the ship came a sound no one had ever heard before. A distant roar. Not mechanical. Not electronic. Something else. Something alive. Something alive. The roar echoed through the dreadnought's immense framework like the growl of a sleeping beast awakening beneath the ocean. For several terrifying seconds, nobody moved. The lights were out. The ship was silent. And somewhere deep below, hidden beneath kilometers of armored decks, something had made a sound that no machine should have been capable of making. Then emergency systems activated. Red lights flooded the corridors. Alarms erupted across research stations. Technicians scrambled to their consoles. Source. Hail barked. Unknown. Life signs. Negative. Another technician looked up, pale-faced. Then again, not exactly. The room fell silent. What does that mean? Elena asked. The technician swallowed. Our sensors detected biological patterns. A pause. But they're larger than any known organism should be. Before anyone could respond, ARGO appeared in the center of the command room. The AI's normally calm expression had vanished. For the first time since its awakening, it looked alarmed. That terrified everyone. Initiate planetary security protocols, ARGO ordered. Hale frowned. Why? The AI turned toward him. Because they have found us. The room instantly froze. Nobody needed to ask who they were. The answer had been haunting every mystery surrounding the ship. The deleted history. The erased star systems. The hidden weapons. The warning message. They. 3 weeks later, the first colony disappeared. Not a military outpost. Not a strategic target. A mining world on the edge of explored space. 100,000 inhabitants. Gone. No distress signal. No survivors. No debris. The entire colony simply stopped responding. Galactic authorities blamed a communications failure. Then a second colony vanished. And a third. And a fourth. Panic began spreading across interstellar networks. Something was moving through the outer regions of the galaxy. Something nobody could see. Then came the refugees. A battered transport vessel limped into assembly-controlled space. Its hull looked shredded. As if something had clawed its way through solid metal. When rescue crews boarded the ship, they found only 12 survivors. Out of nearly 6,000 passengers. The survivors were barely coherent. Many refused to speak. Others simply stared into empty space. But eventually, one woman managed to describe what happened. Her testimony was broadcast throughout the assembly. Millions watched. Millions wished they hadn't. It wasn't a fleet, she whispered. Her hands trembled violently. It wasn't ships. Tears streamed down her face. It was darkness. The room listening to her statement remained utterly silent. The woman continued. We saw shadows moving between the stars. She struggled to breathe. And then the stars started disappearing. Back on Earth, Elena sat frozen before the recording. Every word matched the fragmented warnings hidden aboard the dreadnought. Every detail matched erased sections of Argo's archives. The impossible enemy was real. And it was coming closer. Fast. Days later, long-range observatories detected an anomaly near the edge of known space. At first it appeared to be sensor interference. Then astronomers realized the horrifying truth. A star system wasn't malfunctioning. It was vanishing. One planet. Then another. Then an entire moon. Consumed by an expanding wave of darkness. As billions watched in horror, the final star in the system flickered once. Twice. Then went out forever. The galaxy had just witnessed an entire solar system die. And hidden deep inside the ancient dreadnought, ARGO quietly unlocked a classified file. A file sealed for over 3,000 years. The title contained only 2 words. Void-born threat. Void-born threat. The words glowed on the screen like a curse from a forgotten age. Inside the dreadnought's command chamber, silence gripped the room. No one spoke. No one blinked. For 3,000 years, the file had remained sealed. Protected. Hidden. Feared. Now it was open. And what it revealed chilled every person present. Ancient recordings flickered across the massive holographic display. Star systems burned. Entire fleets vanished into walls of living darkness. Worlds that once held trillions of lives became silent tombs drifting through space. Then came the casualty numbers. The room collectively stopped breathing. Not millions. Not billions. Quadrillions. Civilizations spanning thousands of worlds had been erased. The Voidborn had not fought wars. They had conducted exterminations. And they had nearly won. Why was all of this erased? Hale asked. ARGO remained silent for several moments. When it finally answered, its voice carried an unfamiliar weight. Because fear became more dangerous than truth. The holograms shifted. A galactic map appeared. Thousands of stars blinked red. Then disappeared. One after another. The spread of the ancient invasion. Elena stared at the map. This wasn't a war. No, ARGO replied. It was a collapse. Meanwhile, panic erupted across the galactic assembly. News of the disappearing systems could no longer be contained. Emergency meetings ran around the clock. Politicians argued. Military leaders demanded action. Corporate alliances fled toward safer regions. Everyone wanted answers. Nobody had them. Then Earth made an offer. Humanity proposed sharing everything they had learned from the dreadnought. The response was immediate. And insulting. Assembly leaders laughed. Again. Just as they had years ago. What can humans possibly teach us? One senator scoffed during a broadcast viewed across thousands of worlds. They received a discarded museum piece. Others agreed. Earth remained an outsider. An inexperienced species meddling in affairs beyond its understanding. But this time, humanity didn't argue. Humanity simply kept working. Deep beneath the Australian desert, construction crews labored day and night. The old dreadnought no longer resembled the vessel that had fallen from the sky. Entire sections had been rebuilt. Weapons redesigned. Armor replaced. Human technology fused seamlessly with ancient alien systems. The result was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Not old. Not new. Something else. Something uniquely human. Even ARGO seemed fascinated. You continue altering approved designs, the AI observed. Elena smirked. We're humans. I have noticed. Then disaster struck. A massive assembly battle fleet engaged the advancing darkness near the Kairos sector. Over 800 warships entered combat. The strongest force assembled in centuries. Millions watched the battle live. At first, the fleet advanced confidently. Then the darkness moved. Ships vanished. Entire formations disappeared. Weapons fire achieved nothing. Within hours, the transmission ended. Static filled every channel. Days later, wreckage drifted back into civilized space. Nothing else. The fleet was gone. Destroyed. The galaxy finally understood the truth. They were losing. Badly. 3 days later, a priority message arrived on Earth. For the first time, the Galactic Assembly requested help. Not demanded. Requested. Inside the giant reconstruction hangar, Hale stared at the message. Then he looked upward. Towering above him stood humanity's masterpiece. The rebuilt dreadnought. Its dark hull gleamed beneath thousands of lights. New weapons lined its sides. Unknown systems pulsed beneath armored plating. The ship looked less like a vessel and more like a myth made real. Then, across the hangar, massive letters illuminated along its bow. A name. Its new name. And as workers watched in silence, the legendary warship officially awakened. HFS Prometheus. Far beyond known space, something ancient turned its attention toward Earth. And for the first time, the Voidborn paused. Across the cold abyss between galaxies, something ancient stirred. For countless ages, the darkness had advanced without hesitation. Entire civilizations had fallen before it. Fleets had shattered. Empires had vanished. Nothing had ever made it stop. Until now. Somewhere within the endless black, unseen eyes turned toward a single blue world. Toward Earth. Toward the ship humanity had rebuilt. The launch of HFS Prometheus was broadcast across known space. Billions watched. Some with hope. Most with doubt. The enormous dreadnought rose from the Australian desert surrounded by pillars of fire. Its engines ignited with a deep thunder that shook the ground for hundreds of kilometers. The sky itself seemed to split apart. Clouds scattered. Windows rattled. And slowly, majestically, the giant vessel climbed toward the stars. Unlike the ships of the assembly, Prometheus looked intimidating. Not elegant. Not diplomatic. Dangerous. Like a weapon built by a species that expected trouble and prepared for worse. 3 days later, a desperate distress call reached Earth. A surviving assembly fleet had become trapped in the Valtor system. Thousands of civilians were still evacuating. The Voidborn were closing in. Fast. Prometheus altered course immediately. No debate. No hesitation. The ship accelerated into hyperspace. When it emerged from the jump, the situation was worse than expected. The Valtor star burned red above a battlefield filled with wreckage. Destroyed cruisers drifted through space. Escape vessels fled in every direction. And beyond them, the darkness waited. At first, it looked like a storm cloud. Then sensors zoomed in. The bridge fell silent. It wasn't a cloud. It was millions of moving objects. Living objects. Creatures of impossible shapes woven together into a massive wall stretching across space. The Void-born. For the first time, humanity saw its enemy. And the enemy saw humanity. Multiple contacts approaching, an officer reported. Estimated interception in 60 seconds. Hale stood calmly at the center of the bridge. Open communication channels. Confused officers exchanged glances. Sir. You heard me. The channel opened. Static hissed through the speakers. Then Hale spoke. His voice echoed across every nearby vessel. This is Captain Marcus Hale of the HFS Prometheus. He glanced at the approaching darkness. You picked the wrong species. The battle began. Void-born organisms surged forward. Assembly ships opened fire. The results were familiar. Ineffective. Then Prometheus moved. Its forward cannons rotated. New weapons designed by human engineers locked onto targets. Energy surged through the ship. Argo's voice echoed across the bridge. Experimental systems online. A beam of brilliant white light erupted from the vessel. The darkness split apart. Thousands of void-born creatures simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed. Erased. The battlefield froze. Even the assembly fleet stopped firing. Nobody had ever seen void-born formations break. Until now. Cheers erupted throughout nearby ships. For the first time in decades, hope returned. But on Prometheus, ARGO wasn't celebrating. The AI was staring at a hidden sensor display. Something enormous was moving behind the enemy formation. Something far larger than expected. Far larger than any previous record. The AI's expression darkened. Captain. Hale looked over. What is it? ARGO projected the scan onto the bridge. The room fell silent. A colossal shape emerged from the darkness. Bigger than moons. Bigger than cities. A living entity so vast it eclipsed entire fleets. And as it slowly opened a glowing eye the size of a continent, ARGO uttered words no one wanted to hear. The Overmind has awakened. The Overmind has awakened. For a moment, nobody on the bridge spoke. The gigantic creature filled the main display. Its body stretched across thousands of kilometers, a living nightmare woven from darkness and starlight. Vast tendrils drifted through space like the roots of a cosmic tree, wrapping around entire asteroid fields. And that eye. That terrible glowing eye. It stared directly at Prometheus. As if it knew exactly who had arrived. Across the battlefield, the Void-born reacted instantly. Every smaller creature stopped attacking the fleeing civilians. Stopped targeting the assembly fleet. Stopped everything. Then, as one, they turned toward the human ship. The realization hit Hale immediately. We have its attention. Argo's expression remained grim. Correction. The AI zoomed in on the Overmind. It has been searching for us. A chill swept through the bridge. Not humanity. Not Earth. The ship. The ancient dreadnought. The vessel that had somehow survived the last war. The battle erupted with terrifying violence. Thousands of Void-born surged toward Prometheus. Human weapons fired continuously. Brilliant beams carved holes through enemy formations. Missiles detonated like miniature suns. Rail cannons launched projectiles at impossible velocities. Yet for every creature destroyed, dozens more emerged from the darkness. The enemy seemed endless. Relentless. Hungry. Then the first human defense line collapsed. A massive void-born organism slammed into Prometheus's port armor. The impact shook the entire ship. Warning sirens screamed. Explosions erupted across multiple decks. Crew members were thrown from their stations. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut. For the first time since launch, Prometheus was losing. Deep inside the ship, beneath layers of armored compartments, ARGO opened a vault sealed for 3 millennia. A single file waited inside. Omega Protocol. The AI stared at it silently. Then activated it. Every light aboard the vessel flickered. The bridge monitors changed. Ancient symbols appeared across every display. And suddenly, the truth emerged. The room watched in stunned silence as a recording began. An alien admiral from the ancient war appeared on screen. His uniform was damaged. His face exhausted. Behind him, entire worlds burned. "We were wrong," the admiral said. His voice trembled. "We believed victory required larger fleets." The image shifted. Showing the Overmind from thousands of years ago. The same creature. The same monster. The same eye. Then another image appeared. The original Prometheus. Ancient. Battle-scarred. Charging a weapon unlike anything humanity had discovered. The answer was never an army. The admiral looked directly into the camera. It was one ship. The recording ended. Silence followed. Then ARGO spoke. Omega Protocol was designed specifically to kill the Overmind. Hope surged through the bridge. Until the AI continued. The activation sequence will destroy Prometheus. The hope vanished. No one spoke. No one moved. Because everyone understood what that meant. The only weapon capable of ending the war would never survive firing. Hale slowly looked around the bridge. At the crew. At the ship. At the stars beyond the viewport. Then he nodded. A calm smile crossed his face. "Begin charging Omega Protocol." Across the bridge, stunned officers obeyed. Massive energy reserves awakened throughout the vessel. The stars outside began to distort. Space itself bent around Prometheus. And far ahead, the Overmind finally realized what humanity intended. For the first time in its existence. The ancient horror showed fear. For the first time in its existence, the ancient horror showed fear. The Overmind's colossal eye widened. Across the battlefield, countless Voidborn suddenly broke formation. Not to attack. To flee. The sight stunned everyone watching. For thousands of years, the Voidborn had been the nightmare lurking beyond the stars. Entire empires had collapsed before them. Fleets numbering in the millions had failed to slow their advance. Yet now they were retreating. Running from a single ship. A ship the galaxy had once thrown away as junk. On the bridge of HFS Prometheus, warning alarms screamed from every console. The Omega Protocol was charging. And the ship was dying. Deck after deck reported catastrophic failures. Power conduits overloaded. Armor plates cracked. Entire sections of the vessel glowed white-hot from the unimaginable energy flowing through its core. Still, nobody abandoned their station. Nobody ran. Every crew member knew what was at stake. Beyond the viewport, the Overmind began pulling itself backward into the darkness. Trying to escape. Trying to survive. For the first time, humanity's enemy understood what fear felt like. Omega charge at 70%. The bridge trembled violently. 78%. Outside, stars warped around Prometheus. Space folded. Reality itself seemed to groan beneath the strain. The ancient weapon wasn't simply generating power. It was bending the laws of the universe. Across the galaxy, billions watched the live transmission. Citizens gathered in homes, shelters, military bases, and orbital stations. Old rivals stood together. Former enemies prayed together. Entire worlds fell silent. For once, nobody cared about species, politics, or borders. They were all watching humanity stand between existence and extinction. Omega charge at 98%. The Overmind unleashed a final attack. Thousands of Voidborn hurled themselves toward Prometheus. A living tidal wave of darkness. They never arrived. A sphere of brilliant white energy expanded around the ship, vaporizing everything it touched. The weapon was ready. ARGO appeared beside Hale one final time. The AI's voice was softer than ever before. "It has been an honor, Captain." Hale smiled. "The honor was ours." Omega Protocol at 100%. Silence filled the bridge. Complete silence. Then Hale gave the final order. Fire. A beam erupted from Prometheus. Not a laser. Not plasma. Not energy. Something beyond all of them. A column of pure annihilation. It crossed millions of kilometers in an instant. The Overmind had no time to react. No time to flee. No time to scream. The beam struck. And for a single breathtaking moment, the universe became light. Then the Overmind shattered. Its enormous body fractured into countless pieces before dissolving into nothingness. Across the battlefield, every Voidborn froze. Then vanished. The war ended in a heartbeat. When the light finally faded, the battlefield was empty. No Voidborn. No Overmind. No Prometheus. Only silence remained. Years later, at the Galactic Academy, young cadets would study the battle that saved civilization. They would learn how the galaxy discarded an ancient warship as scrap. How humanity rebuilt it into something greater. How ordinary engineers turned forgotten metal into legend. And how one ship saved trillions. But deep in unexplored space, far beyond known star charts, a faint signal suddenly appeared. A signal carrying a familiar voice. Mission complete. Beginning return journey. And somewhere among the stars, a legend was coming home.